Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. One quarter down in 2024, Palantir falls slightly for the week, as well as huge short covering from the latest short interest data, as well as an unexpected deal and many more. But looking at the stock briefly first, we close out the shortened week at $23, down a few percentage points. So we'll talk later about the main news that drove the price down in the middle of the week. But Palantir seems to have found its place in the 20s so far. Now, next week, Vitally will show how this band of support at 23 may or may not hold. But regardless, this volatility is expected for a company like Palantir that relies on multiples stemming from their expected growth and execution over time, so we'll just have to see. Now, first, we started off the week with the NHS finally providing an unredacted version of the contract that they had for the FDP. For those who were following it closely, it was released around the holidays late last year, and basically like 70 to 80% of the contract was redacted out with plenty of fully blacked out pages. Several months later, we've finally gotten the unredacted versions here, so check them out when you have a chance. This effort was initially actually from anti-Palantir campaigns, putting pressure on NHS England for transparency, so you'll probably see articles floating around on how there's always something to hide, but regardless, it's here open for all to comb through. And a heads up too for folks trying to get more information out of this deal, we most likely won't hear about performance or results, or at least directly from the outcomes of this project yet from NHS England themselves, especially when there's always someone complaining. But if Palantir later on is able to show and share some stuff, that's what I'll be looking out for. Next, we've got the unexpected deal on Lithuania's government contracting website, and it's for around 35 million euros or $37 million. Now, for those wondering, Palantir actually had two previous smaller contracts with Lithuania around 300,000 and 700,000 euros, which are probably just the trial periods for them to test out the software and get a feel for it. This latest contract was awarded on March 21st, the previous week, and seems to be the culminations of these tests proving themselves. And this probably has been in the works for a while, considering last year, Palantir announced that they'd make the capital of Lithuania a regional tech hub, so we know Palantir's ties to the Eastern Europe seems to be slowly making its way into more deals. And one other country too that I'm going to look out for just because of this is a similar time that CARP was meeting with their government is Estonia. They're pretty much in a similar position too when it comes to Russian aggression, and it's no secret that the Baltic states are worried about their eastern neighbor while Ukraine is still fighting their war. Then we've got new short interest data as of March 15, 2024. It plunged down almost 15%, meaning that shorts have covered, as well as less net new short positions being open. So this is probably one of the biggest declines in recent memories, at least, with the last several ones only fluctuating a few percentage points down or up. It's interesting at least to note the magnitude since we're at the current price of the stock, but we'll continue to monitor while we're still up here. Then we've got a new New York Times article regarding AI tech leaders meeting up May 1st. The focus is that they can combat China's AI development, as well as the recent swirl on TikTok and banning the platform. The cool thing is that Palantir's Alex Karp and Jacob Hellberg were specific mentions in the article, so it continues to show the importance of Palantir around the conversation of AI for the US in regards to policy and development, and at least from a Palantir investor perspective, the importance of Palantir having the chance to make a mark on the trajectory is huge, as well as just following the mission with defending Western values and ensuring we remain competitive against adversarial countries like China racing with us on this new technology. So it won't be surprising, honestly, if Palantir keeps showing up here, and we know some people think this is shady working so closely with the government on emerging technology, but from any practical standpoint, getting some organization around industry and upcoming policy or regulation is definitely better than just letting things rampant on their own, especially if it deals with the defense of our country. Then we finally get some good news out from Germany. Essentially, the chairman of German criminal investigators, Dirk Preglow, came out and basically said Germany needs Palantir to roll out the Vera platform nationwide. This is after the roadblocks from last year by the Ministry of the Interior, who blocked this rollout and said that they're concerned with data privacy, as well as wanting to develop their own homegrown German equivalent. So getting someone to speak out on the opposite to note the urgency around using Palantir, which is an already developed and proven working product, is nice. And this is in the wake of the recent terror attack out in Russia. So we'll see if this prompts the German government to at least reconsider Palantir again at a nationwide level, even if it's just a bridge for their development of their own grown tool. Then Palantir announced a new Ukraine deal with the Ministry of Education. They specifically have this use case around resource allocation and risk rating at the end goal of raising in-person attendance of school children again. This is amongst lagging results for school children due to the forced hybrid and fully remote options needed to avoid the war areas. The interesting aspect too is that this is a one-year deal signed right after the AIP bootcamp that we covered last week, which is the use case was not actually mentioned specifically, but vaguely only a piece regarding tracking working students. So who knows? That may have been a big factor in this deal getting inked, and we may hear more use cases coming out with official deals with Ukraine, considering the time spent and trust built up with Palantir and the Ukrainian government. And yeah, these may not be the biggest deals in the world dollar amount wise, but the possibility of starting from the ground up I think is more useful because it will demonstrate to nearby neighbors or just other countries amidst war fighting that they need to do things after the war is over, and possibly creating this out of the box use cases that will be helpful for like demining as a big example. Now, the majority of the downwards price action this week happened when we got a new analyst downgrade from neutral to sell, since their price target is $20 and we're clearly above that. Essentially, the main argument is that Palantir is overvalued. I mean, you can argue and have your own opinions on this, so by any traditional surface level look, you can argue Palantir is overvalued. But obviously, as someone watching the narrative more closely, there are a lot of reasons some folks are willing to pay the premium for Palantir, especially if they plan to be a long-term holder of the company and looking at the deals that they have as well as their customers. Now, with the release of this analyst downgrade and lower volumes on Thursday with the holiday coming up, this was kind of a recipe for disaster here, with the main driver of the price action to close the week down. Although I'd say $23 is still a sight to behold for Palantir shareholders. Then we get an unexpected shout out by Walgreens CEO on Bloomberg.
We think there's some really interesting things that we can do there. I just spoke with Alex Karp this week from Palantir, who clearly is doing some interesting things there. And that's one of a number of folks that we're working with to actually, again, really get at meaningful things that we can do in the business leveraging AI.
Now, it's very, very brief, but essentially he talks about their AI initiatives, and I'm not sure if this was planned or prompted, but he specifically brings up talking with Alex Karp and working with Palantir. Now, he didn't say anything about official deals or such. It could be as simple as a conversation or boot camps or anything. But still, being a large, well-known retailer and pharmacy chain in the United States is not something to sneeze at. Palantir seems to be making its way to these leadership boards across all industries and getting into a very public-facing and recognized name, which just adds more to their reputation if they can lock them down as a customer. And Walgreens CEO only had good things to say on how talks with them are interesting and seems to be getting real results with AI, where Palantir at least needs to be in the conversation. And then finally, with the market closed on Friday, Palantir released a PR on their investor relations website. It's a familiar deal here for 1 year and $9.8 million with the DISA. I covered this actually a month back when DISA themselves released the news of Palantir's win on March 1st. It was just interesting that Palantir released the same information a month late, but I just briefly talked about how it's nice to closely follow an interesting company like Palantir and all the news that may go under the radar if you're only looking at the official press releases. But what are your thoughts though on all the news from this shortened week? And I'll see you in the next video.